RoboCop.
I'd buy that for $1.
Just like every other 30-something out there in the world, I love this movie. This has been one of my favorites since I was a kid, even though the reasons that I love it have changed. When I was a kid, I mostly just cared about the blood and guts. What can I say? I was morbid back then. But as I grew up, I realized there's a lot more to like about this movie. Now, before I begin, I want to let you know that there's going to be some spoilers in this video. So, if you're one of the few people who've never seen this movie, I strongly urge you to check it out first. Trust me, you're not going to be disappointed. So, about what I like. There's a lot. So, I apologize up front if it feels like I'm jumping around. First off, I love how seriously everybody took this movie. Because let's face it, this movie didn't have a lot going for it when it was just a script. A police officer gets killed, and he's turned into a robot cop.
That's the stupidest idea I've ever heard, you imbecile.
This movie was passed on by several production companies and directors. None of them wanted to be associated with anything with such a stupid premise. But Paul Verhoeven came along and really took this movie to the next level. By taking the plot seriously, he was able to bring into focus some of the underlying themes about humanity and compassion, greed and corruption. Take Alex Murphy, for instance. He wasn't just some one-dimensional character who dies and is brought back as a robot superhero.
RoboCop.
No, he actually had a life and a family, and after he was killed, his memory was erased, and he was turned into a robot by OCP, the giant corporation that owns the police. Now, it starts off okay. RoboCop patrols the city, taking out criminals with no regard to what or even who he is.
Madam, you have suffered an emotional shock. I will notify a rape crisis center.
But as the movie goes on, RoboCop starts to understand that there may be more to his past than he can remember. He investigates Alex Murphy's death. He finds out about his family, where he lived, and how he died. And this movie actually goes into how it affects him. And this is where you gotta give it to Peter Weller.
Well, give the man a hand.
He did such a fantastic job at letting you know what he's feeling through just a small portion of his face. His sadness, his anger, it's all brought to the screen so well.
Why not make me an offer?
And speaking of great acting, Kurtwood Smith. I don't care how many episodes that I watch of That 70s Show.
How'd you like to own a little bit of my foot in your ass?
This guy will always be Clarence Boddicker.
Can you fly, Bobby?
Clarence, no!
He's just such a nasty, sleazy character, and I love it.
Maybe you could, fit me in.
And no matter what the script asks of him, he does it in a way that seems so natural to his character. You know, it never comes off as overacting.
Shut the fuck up and do it! Just do it!
And the whole gang, actually, is cast really well. We never really meet or spend too much time with the other goons, but I feel like since they all have such distinct characters, we know them so well. Emil is the reckless one.
Your ass is mine.
There's that guy who's second in command to Clarence. And who could forget the guy with the hilarious laugh? I also love how there are multiple bad guys throughout the movie. It's not just Clarence and his gang. In the beginning, the gang really is all we have. They're the ones who killed Murphy, and they act as a driving force that keeps the movie going through the first half. But in the meantime, we also get introduced to some OCP executives. In particular, Dick Jones and Bob Morton. Dick is obviously the worst one. He's so corrupt and power hungry that he doesn't even care his Ed 209 unit is a faulty piece of crap.
Sure, it's only a glitch.
Yeah, some glitch. Bob Morton seems like he might be the good guy of the bunch. He's the one who swoops in after the Ed 209 mishap and pitches the RoboCop program.
Perhaps you're aware of the RoboCop program developed by myself at Security Concepts as a contingency against just this sort of thing.
But as the movie goes on, he turns out to be just as awful as Dick. He reassigns a bunch of cops to more dangerous districts, hoping that one of them would be killed. And when one finally is killed, he deletes his memories and turns him into a machine, paying no mind to the moral ramifications.
He doesn't have a name. He's got a program. He's product. Is that clear?
And the dynamic of all these villains gets really interesting once Bob Morton gets killed. We find out that Clarence Boddicker is actually working for Dick Jones. So by the time RoboCop takes care of the gang, we have a whole new plot to follow.
I work for Dick Jones! Dick Jones!
And since Dick Jones was already introduced as a bad guy, it's not that hard for us to shift our focus to him for the final act of the movie. And I really like this shift midway through. It's really satisfying for a few reasons. First of all, it gives RoboCop an excuse to come back and fight the very corporation that created him, which serves the narrative really well. Secondly, it takes RoboCop from fighting bad guys in the streets to fighting bad guys in corporate buildings, which is great for the pacing. If it was just RoboCop fighting criminals in the streets for the whole movie, it would be too repetitive, and it would get boring. And finally, this shift back to OCP midway through gives us an excuse to have an epic battle between RoboCop and Ed 209. I always felt like the acting throughout the movie was so nuanced.
Pointed at Ed 209.
I'm not sure if Paul Verhoeven encouraged the actors to improvise,
Why don't you drive?
or if he just wrote their characters so well. Either way, there's so many moments that just feel so natural. And it's moments like these that really help to pull you in, and they help ground the movie in more reality, which really makes the action and sci-fi elements pop that much more. The cinematography. There's a lot of men in suits droning on and on in this movie, and it runs the risk of getting really boring, but it never does. The camera is constantly moving and going between different characters.
Man, I hear Jones is a real shark. Who asked you, twerp? Bob.
What about this police thing? What's the problem?
Their union's been...
I mean, the camera is hardly ever just sitting still. Here, for instance, we get a large sweeping shot that establishes the large conference room, but at the same time it also reveals a scale model of Delta City at just the right time.
Delta City.
Another one of my favorite scenes is in the bathroom. It's not what you think. The camera starts under the stall, and then it sweeps up to Dick Jones and Bob Morton as they're talking by the sink. And the camera here is like constantly moving around the actors as they're also moving around each other. It's such a well choreographed scene for just a conversation. And it makes this interaction between the two so memorable to me. If I had to reach for something that I didn't like about this movie, it's probably how you can see in a lot of close-ups of RoboCop that a lot of the parts are just like pieces of plastic. It's hard to commit to this complaint though, because of the fact that most of the stuff you probably wouldn't even be able to see back in the day on VHS. It wasn't until they upscaled it for DVD and Blu-ray that you could even tell. But even still, it's hard for my eye not to be drawn to the obvious plastic and rubber pieces all over the suit. Now, with that said, RoboCop's suit is awesome, even with all the plastic pieces. It's so cool, and it totally beats the crap out of any of the new designs from this stupid remake.
Wow.
Well, that about does it for me and my thoughts. This was a hard video for me to make because of the fact that this movie means so much to me. It's almost as if I don't want to let it down. So I hope you liked it.
I like it!
Thanks for watching, everyone. My name's Kenny. And until next time, let's not just watch movies, let's talk about them too.